estimates, the agriculture sector's real value added declined by 17% in 2023. It went further on pages 33 to 38 to highlight the decline in the various agriculture subsectors. Fishing production declined by 4.6%. Livestock production declined by 17.3%. Chicken production declined by 11.7%. Pork production declined by 41.6%. Egg production declined by 7.8%. Banana production declined by 45.5%. Non-banana crops declined by 17.3%. And regional exports of bananas declined by 54%. The future of St. Lucia's food security is in jeopardy under Labour. The UWP has a plan and is ready to right the wrongs of this reckless SLP administration. Our farmers and fisher folk deserve better. Lisa, Prosper, and Philippe Pierre, pas bon.
At a recent briefing, Prime Minister Philippe Pierre claimed that the custody suites project has been delayed due to bathroom sinks and toilets breaking during shipment. Not just once, but twice.
There was a series of unfortunate events. Number one, there was supposed to have the toilets, the special toilets. They got broken. When in shipping. My information is they were sent back to all the new ones, and then the yellow ones came back and they sent back the same broken ones. So my information, you see, and a lot.
But here's the truth. The sinks and toilets designed for prison facilities are made of stainless steel, built to withstand extreme conditions and nearly impossible to break in transit. The Prime Minister's claim doesn't add up. This project was initially estimated to cost $1.5 million. Somehow, that budget tripled to $4.5 million. And now there are reports that the costs have spiraled even higher. With every delay and excuse, taxpayers are forced to bear the burden of rising costs while the government dodges accountability. Why isn't Prime Minister Pierre giving the people the truth about what's really causing the delays and escalating the costs? St. Lucia deserves a leader who takes responsibility, not one who resorts to dubious excuses. Our country demands transparency and honesty, not stories that simply don't hold water.
In 2019, the Allen Chastanet-led United Workers' Party took decisive action to address the healthcare challenges faced by St. Lucians. The UWP secured a US $20 million loan from the World Bank under the Health Systems Strengthening Project. Out of this loan, US $5.5 million was specifically allocated to establish the framework for a national health insurance program. Under this initiative, every St. Lucian would have received up to $75,000 in healthcare coverage on an annual basis, making healthcare more accessible, equitable, and affordable for all. An advisory board of experts, including Dr. Stephen King and Dr. Merle Clark, was assembled to design the framework for this transformative program. However, when the Philip J. Pierre administration took office, they chose to abandon this initiative. Why? Simply because it was started by the United Workers' Party. The consequences of this decision are devastating. Families continue to struggle with medical expenses, hospitals remain overwhelmed, and St. Lucians are left without the healthcare safety net they were excitedly expecting. Where is the accountability? Where is the vision? We would not be facing the current health crisis if the NHI program had been implemented. The National Health Insurance Program was never about politics. It was about people. It would ensure every St. Lucian had access to the care they deserve. Let's set the record straight. The health of our nation should never be sacrificed for politics. It's time to demand a healthcare system that St. Lucians deserve. Labour, pas bon.
On October 20th, 2024, at the SLP's Conference of Delegates in Vieux-Fort, Prime Minister Philippe J. Pierre made a desperate attempt to rewrite history.
You will remember that the United Workers' Party only gave COVID support to NIC contributors.
This claim is absolutely false. The truth? In July 2020, under the UWP administration, 5,000 St. Lucians who were non-contributors of NIC received $500 per month for 3 months to help them survive the pandemic. Prime Minister Pierre knows the facts, yet he chose to lie to the nation. Why? To mislead and divide. St. Lucia deserves a leader who values integrity, one who speaks the truth, not one who tries to twist it. Pierre, pardon. We need real leadership, not deception. Youth and Sports Minister Kenson Casimir has been caught blatantly lying about the delays with several disciplines related to national school sports. On October 23, 2024, an article published by Terry Finisterre, a well-known sports journalist and a close political ally of Minister Casimir, penned an article titled "School Sports Suspended." The story went on to explain that secondary student athletes in St. Lucia would be denied an opportunity to showcase their talents and abilities this term, as school sports has been suspended. It went further to say that this term faced the unusual interruption due to the Julian Alfred homecoming in September. According to Finisterre, one official who wished to remain anonymous told him that the disruption in instruction occasioned by the week of activities, including school rallies and a holiday, in addition to the resources that went into planning the festivities, were all a factor in deciding to cull sports. It is therefore disingenuous and a blatant lie on the part of Minister Casimir to accuse the UWP of fabricating this issue when it was first brought to light by his close friend and colleague. Attempts to salvage the issue were only made due to significant public pressure.
Are you ready to make a movement that aims to make St. Lucia the best place to live, work, visit, and invest? The United Workers' Party is a team of forward thinkers, visionaries, passionate and caring citizens just like you. Together, we can create a brighter future, create safer communities, lower taxes, improve healthcare, and create more opportunities for all. Stand with the UWP and be part of change. Join the United Workers' Party because St. Lucia deserves better.
Youth and Sports Minister Kenson Casimir is under fire now that it has been revealed that he has acquired millions worth of real estate over the last 3.5 years. Since assuming office, Casimir has developed 3 villas in Union Hilltop. He is now in the process of constructing another development in Cap Estate, this time with 5 properties. What makes this transaction suspicious is that Casimir made a $100,000 cash deposit on the property. The total cost of the property is about $273,000. Compounding the situation is that a contractor, who is also a political financier of Casimir, is the one developing the minister's newly acquired Cap Estate property. This same contractor was awarded a multi-million-dollar contract for rehabilitation work done on the Darren Sammy cricket ground in preparation for World Cup cricket, as well as numerous other contracts in the constituency of Grosley. The allegations being leveled against the minister is that he has received kickbacks from the contractor for the Cap Estate development in return for the awarding of multi-million-dollar contracts around the constituency. Has Casimir filed these developments with the Integrity Commission? Prime Minister Philippe Pierre claimed that he would have a zero tolerance for corruption in his cabinet, although he has ignored numerous glaring examples of corruption amongst his cabinet colleagues. Will this be another situation that
Good morning to members of the media. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Those of you especially following us on live stream, whether in the diaspora or in St. Lucia. Welcome to United Workers' Party press conference. This morning I have with me the Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party, Senator Dominic Fede, and the Political Leader and Parliamentary Representative for Micoud South, the Honorable Allen Chastanet. And this morning we're going to deal with two separate issues. In the first instance, we'll have Senator Fede will be coming to respond to a question that was asked of him, because as you know, as a public official, there are times when there are concerns and questions are asked, and it is incumbent on public officials to come out to clear the air and to clarify issues when necessary. You would recall that not too long ago on his show, Government Minister Richard Frederick asked some questions, making some insinuations as to what had become of the funds that were raised from the fundraising effort that was spearheaded by Senator Dominic Fede, who was then the parliamentary representative of ancillary Canaries. And those funds were specifically being raised for the purpose of purchasing an ambulance for Canaries. And since the question has been asked, Senator Fede felt it, as a public official, it's incumbent upon him to clear the air and let the public know exactly what the situation is. So I will now invite Senator Fede to the podium so that he can clarify the matter, clear the air, and answer the questions as to where are the funds. Senator Fede.
Thank you very much, Spider. Good morning to members of the media. Good morning to listeners on Facebook. Welcome to this another live press briefing of the United Workers' Party. It has become necessary for me to respond to questions raised on the February 13th show of Can I Help You, hosted by Government Minister Richard Frederick. In that show, he insinuated that a fundraiser was held for the procurement of an ambulance for the community of Canaries. He then suggested that the monies could not be found. Well, I want to state to you, to the members of the public, that there is nothing that could be further from the truth. The minister, as he has done on countless occasions on his show, has lied. And so I want to present to you facts of a fundraising I have done back in the year 2019. It was in the form of a Sunday lunch held at Royalton Hotel. We reached out to many corporate companies and private individuals to support this fundraiser in an effort to raise monies for the procurement of an ambulance for the community of Canaries. It must also be noted that to date, the community is still without an ambulance. Those corporate and private individuals include Invest St. Lucia, Concrete and Aggregate, National Insurance Corporation, Foster & Inc., Joseph Shipping, Century Investment, Cox & Company, the Embassy of Taiwan, Flosac and Fleming and Associates, DCF Exec and Leisure, Barron's Food Limited, St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Bay Gardens Beach Resort, Caribbean Metals, Sandoz Grand St. Lucian, Jane Duboulay, St. Lucia Distillers, Tikai Resort, Bellevue St. Lucia, CPAL Holdings, SLHTA, Digicel, First Caribbean International Bank, C.O. Williams, and various other private individuals who patronized this event by purchasing tickets. All checks were made, proceed to the St. Lucia Social Development Fund. Many St. Lucians know it as SSDF. The total monies that were raised in revenue amounted to $7.65. The total expenses, mainly in paying the Royalton Hotel for the meals and banqueting and the rental of the banquet hall as provided, adds up to this amount: $28,805, leaving a balance or a profit from the event of $29,202.65. This figure is as of January 2022. St. Lucians will recall that after hosting this charity event in 2019, the country in 2020 would have been hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. This hampered the committee's ability to put on other events towards the charity of the Canaries ambulance. Therefore, we saw a complete halt in all fundraising activities until the United Workers' Party would have lost the elections in the year 2021. We would have left in 2021 $29,202.65. The Labour Party administration assumed office, and the MP for Ancillary Canaries became Mr. Wayne Girard. The new CEO of the St. Lucia Social Development Fund became Mr. John Victorin, who was a SLP candidate in the 2016 election for the Ancillary Canaries seat. Both Mr. Girard, in their capacities as MP and the now CEO for the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, had the opportunity to raise the balance of the monies, but instead they chose to play politics with the people's business, with the people's healthcare, with the people's future. And so instead, nothing has been done. It's been 4 years that the St. Lucia Labour Party administration has assumed office, and nothing has been done to resuscitate the fund that was put in place by myself and with the help of former Minister for the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, Minister Spider Montoot, who gave his blessings for us to use the accountability and the accounting infrastructure so that we would have been able to properly account for the monies raised by private individuals and by corporate persons in St. Lucia. And so we are here today. A simple check at the St. Lucia Social Development Fund would have revealed a lot. The Minister of Housing, Richard Frederick, would have known where the monies are. But I suspect he doesn't want to know, because he's not interested in resuscitating the fund, and neither there's any evidence to suggest that the MP that replaced me, my successor, Wayne Girard, is interested in resuscitating that fund either. You see, everything that we have started in the community, whether it is the waterfront touristic project, or whether they are roads or playing field projects that we have started, anything that has the DNA of the UWP or Dominic Faley or Allen Chastanet on it, the St. Lucia Labour Party administration, they have stayed far from completing, so that the people of Canaries and Ancillary and Millet and Jackmel and these areas can get the deserved representation that they require. So it is unfortunate that I've had to come and respond to yet another lie. The United Workers' Party, I must add, will not continue to allow the lies, especially from the show Can I Help You, hosted by Richard Frederick, to continue without us dismantling them, without us making sure that we debunk them line by line, story by story, lie by lie. We will continue to bring you the information for clarity as you require. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Fede. As you just heard, Senator Fede responding to the question as to where the funds from the fundraising effort for the ambulance for ancillary Canaries have gone, and you have just heard that the funds, in fact, have been, always was, with the SSDF. So the minister in particular who was asking the question now knows the answer, and those of you who became curious as a result of that question, you have now heard the answer. There are many questions being asked of public officials, and we are hoping that other public officials will take example from Senator Fede and come forward to the public to divulge information, to clarify and enlighten us as to what exactly it is that is happening in the spirit of transparency and accountability, to let the public know and have their questions answered. I also have this morning here with us, as I told you, the Leader of the Opposition and Parliamentary Representative for Miku South, the Honorable Allen Chastanet. Now, Honorable Chastanet is not necessarily here in his capacity as leader of the of the United Workers' Party. I specifically said leader of the opposition because that in itself is a constitutional post held by Honorable Allen Chastanet. And when I say it is a constitutional post, it is a requirement in our democracy. And the task of the leader of opposition is specifically to hold the government accountable, okay, and to ask the pertinent and relevant questions on behalf of the people of St. Lucia. One of the questions the Honorable Allen Chastanet has been asking for some time now, again, it has to do with funds, and here we come back to the WTF. He has been asking questions about what has happened to the funds generated from the CIP. With the CIP unit not responding to date, despite the amount of time they have had and the amount of times the question has been asked, we have not gotten an answer either from the unit nor the minister responsible or the Prime Minister, who is in fact Minister of Finance here in St. Lucia. We know from evidence that we have seen from the contracts that have been leaked that we are talking about billions of dollars that are not accounted for, that none of us know exactly where it is going to whom it is going, and exactly what is happening to it. This is money generated from our patrimony, money derived from the sale of our passports, and as a result, we, the citizens of this country, have a right to know exactly how that money is being disbursed, how it is apportioned, and who exactly is benefiting from our resources. And so, since no questions are forthcoming from the relevant authorities, namely the Citizen by Investment Unit, Dr. Ernest Healer, the minister responsible for the CIP, or the Prime Minister, who is the Minister of Finance, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition has gone beyond what he has done already as part of his duties, and it is his duty to do so. It is his responsibility to ask the relevant question on our behalf. And since the officials that I mentioned, Dr. Hilaire, Philip J. Pierre, and the CIP unit, are not living up to their own responsibility, the leader of the opposition has taken it to another level to ensure that we, the people of St. Lucia, can get some answers. I invite you to listen as I call on the leader of the opposition to tell you exactly what measures have been taken to ensure that we not only get answers, but we get a lead as to where that money, the resources that belongs to the state, can be retrieved if possible, and for us to derive the benefit that we deserve from it. I would like to now call on the Honorable Allen Chastanet, Leader of the Opposition and Parliamentary Representative for Miku South, who will address you on the issue of the missing funds of the CIP.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm here to announce that as the leader of the opposition, that I have filed in the High Court today a case of judicial review on the CIP program. And it's specifically directed at the Minister of CIP and also includes the CIP board and the CEO additionally. The question is, how did we get here today? We would have known over the last couple of years, 2 specifically, that there have been local allegations of misconduct, meaning how the CIP program is being managed, and that there has been international allegations for some time about the conduct of the affairs and the management of the affairs of the CIP program on behalf of the people of St. Lucia. Probably the one that has provided us with some level of evidence that something could potentially be wrong in St. Lucia was the revelations by the MSR investigation or cases in St. Kitts. You would know that MSR sued individuals involved in the CIP program in St. Kitts, indicating that there had been multiple misrepresentations and mismanagement deliberately, which was affecting their ability to participate fairly in the marketplace with their own CIP program. These were not just basic allegations, but they were supported by substantial evidence. And it is the evidence that was put in the courts in St. Kitts and also the RICO case that was filed in the United States that started giving us, for the first time, real evidence that something was drastically wrong. How did that relate to St. Lucia? It related to St. Lucia because the entity in which these allegations were being made was against Galaxy, and in particular, Les Can, who at the time was the CEO of the CIP program in St. Kitts. What was revealed in that case was that the government of St. Kitts allocated 5,700 files, which had a market value of approximately $1 billion to Galaxy. And Galaxy was, according to them and the documents that were presented, allowed to collect all of the money, that is both the fees and the administrative fees, and did not have to provide those monies into the CIP unit. And the project was supposed to be a prison. The estimated cost of the prison was $50 million. Now, I think that every reasonably thinking person would say, wow, a $50 million project, and you're giving them over $1 billion of value in passports or citizenships to sell. The question that really came up, because at the end of the day, the prison was never built, but all of the files were sold. And in the audit by the new government, found out that what everybody had been speculating was true. Because nobody believes that the government would have been so stupid, so irresponsible, to have given away $1 billion in exchange for a $50 million prison. So the allegation was that the government colluded with Galaxy and knew that Galaxy would not have been selling the units for the price that was regulated, meaning that had been passed, that this is what the price in Parliament, these are the prices that the citizenships should have been sold for. And everybody speculated that maybe what was at play and why they gave them so many files is because they were not intending to sell them at the market value, but in fact to undersell them. Now that makes sense because the volume of passports that were sold or citizenships that were sold certainly far exceeded what would normally take place. So it would suggest that there was some kind of deal in the marketplace to have caused those numbers of passports or citizenships to have been sold. The evidence went as far as that the government of St. Kitts wrote to several of the persons who bought citizenships, purchased citizenships through that program, indicating to them that they had to prove that they paid the right amount of money. And my understanding is that several of those persons have come forward and admitted they did not pay the right amount of money. And some have chosen to pay the difference to the government of St. Kitts, and some have not responded as yet. But certainly we now have the clear evidence that there was some kind of collusion taking place. The situation was made even more dramatic by the revelation in the RICO case where MSR was able to obtain bank records of Les Can. And those bank records showed that Les Can was, while he was the CEO of the CIP unit in St. Kitts, was being paid monies directly by Galaxy. And there was also the allegation that there were other companies who were benefiting and were also paying Les Can. So we've jumped from the position of speculating to now having actual evidence to take it even further. Now, I want to say that Mr. Can has not been tried. Nobody has been charged. But in the case against him and in the case against two of the former prime ministers, this is the evidence that has been presented. Here in St. Lucia, while we absolutely sympathize with Mr. Martinez and MSR, but Mr. Martinez and MSR were not doing business in St. Lucia. And so while I'm very grateful to him and his company for what they have done in revealing a lot of the inner workings of the CIP and helping us determine the level of impropriety that was taking place, his fight is with Galaxy and his fight was with the government of St. Kitts. But it's through his work and the evidence that he provided, and given the fact now that Galaxy is in St. Lucia and that Les Can, who is no longer the CEO of the CIP unit, is now currently the CEO of Galaxy, that it becomes relevant to St. Lucia. We have asked, as Spider has indicated, multiple times for the government to answer some basic questions. You'll remember we asked how many files were allocated to Galaxy. The minister indicated that this was a confidential document, this was a transaction between the two of them, and he was not in a position to reveal any details of the contract. We heard that the CEO of the CIP unit went to Washington, D.C. We found that out after the fact. We found out that he met with MSR's lawyers, but we also found out that he met with law enforcement agents in Washington, D.C., U.S. law enforcement agents in Washington, D.C. We've not had the benefit of a press conference for there to be full transparency as to what happened. Why did he go there? Why did he feel obliged to go there? Specifically, especially when he was named in the suit, because MSR turned around and sued the CEO of St. Lucia, implicating him in what was taking place in St. Kitts. Remember, there was a question as to who was paying his legal fees, because the Prime Minister came out and said that the CEO went on his own. He never got any permission from anyone. He didn't even know that he was going. But let's remember that Mr. Martinez, in an interview, revealed taped conversations where the Prime Minister admitted that he knew that he went. And he was in touch with the CEO every step of the way. And yet the Prime Minister continuously pushes back and says the minister will deal with this and the board will deal with this. Well, we had further complications in getting information because we have a chairman that we don't know if he's really the chairman or not the chairman. Because he has privately said to people that he's not the chairman. And we've not seen any evidence of him participating in any meetings. But the fact is, on record, he is still the chairman. Because none of us have seen a letter of resignation or any notice that he's left. Our questions are further exasperated by the fact that the CIP board is required in its own act to lay before the House an annual report and audited papers, an audited report of the CIP unit's activities for the year. I want to say that while we were in government, every single year we complied on time with that requirement. It is only since that this government has come in that the last report to have been filed was over 1 year late. The report was supposed to have been filed in October of 2023. So it means that the fiscal year ends on March 31st. A document is supposed to be provided, a report is supposed to be provided to the minister within 3 months, and then the minister has another 3 months up to another 3 months to lay it before the House. 1 year late. And as we speak today, the report for 23-24 was supposed to be laid in the House since October of 24, and here we are at the end of February in 2025, and we've not seen that report. That's important because a lot of the information and the questions we've been asking would have been provided in the report. Now, in the previous report that they sent, it is only in the last quarter of the year, meaning from January of 2023 to March of 2024, that we saw a huge upsurge in applications, but the report provided absolutely no explanations as to what that is. I can only say to all of us that you noticed that me in particular, as a leader of the opposition, have attempted to get civil society much more engaged in this issue. I've tried to engage government agencies in this issue to try to get answers. All have been denied. I've asked certain civil society groups for an opportunity to speak to them about what's taking place. And again, as Spider indicated, the leader of the opposition is a constitutional position that is parts of the checks and balances in our democracy. And it is the responsibility of the leader of the opposition to hold the government accountable on what they promised and to make sure that they're following the proper prescribed regulations and laws of this country. And I, as a leader of the opposition, have grave concerns, which brings me to where I am today. In the latter part of 2024, 4 documents were leaked. The documents were the original contract that was signed with Galaxy in 2018 for the hotel, an amended version of that contract that was signed in 2022, and a contract with BMAX for infrastructure and a contract with Galaxy for infrastructure. And it is now that we have those contracts that we can speak with a certain level of certainty as to what has transcribed. So, on the basis of what has been happening and the evidence that came out of the MSR case and came out of other issues taking place here in St. Lucia, along with now the 4 contracts that came out, and how we see the government has amended certain things within the CIP Act to accommodate these programs, that I felt it necessary as the leader of the opposition to protect the interest of the people of St. Lucia. And those interests are both from a democracy point as well as accountability of the assets. So I have filed today, as I said to you, in the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, an application for a judicial review. That application focuses on 3 particular aspects. One is on the contract for Galaxy as a hotel. As I indicated to you, there was a contract in existence of 2018. That contract was amended in 2022. The contract that was amended increased the allocation of citizenships from $210 million US dollars to $1 billion US dollars. They also designated Galaxy as the only hotel project up until 2024 for 2 years. It gave them exclusivity. And they designated Galaxy as a promoter for the project and not just a developer. And as such, Galaxy would be paid a commission, the equivalent of the administrative fee that the government is supposed to collect. So here it is, we've gone from $210 million to $1 billion US dollars. And there was no changes to the size of the project. That they were given an exclusivity and they were made a promoter, and they were collecting all of the administrative fees that the government would have normally collected. So it means that the government of St. Lucia and the people of St. Lucia would be receiving nothing, no money from this project, not $1. So the question we're asking, is that reasonable? Or is that in fact malfeasance? Has the government acted inappropriately? Can the government justify making those kinds of decisions? What is even more compelling that there's something wrong is that the project started construction in 2019. This is a $300 million hotel. And as we speak today, it is estimated that they've only spent $10 million US dollars on the ground. Then there's the matter of the escrow account. You heard the minister indicate that the money in the escrow account does not belong to the state. That is false. The money goes into an escrow account, and yes, it's not controlled by the state, but it is a requirement for the state to make sure that the monies are spent appropriately. So how can I believe, or any one of us believe, and the minister reported that Galaxy had collected almost 400 million US dollars as of last summer, so I have no idea how much more they've collected, and have only spent 10 million US dollars. And the question is the remaining amount of money in the escrow account? And the minister and the prime minister have refused to answer that question. So part of this case and the judicial review is to understand why the government of St. Lucia would have gotten into such a one-sided contract and made these amendments, why there's so little work taking place on the ground, and how much money is in the escrow account, and whether in fact the escrow account is being run properly. The second aspect of the case is on the infrastructure program. We've said from the beginning that the infrastructure program has been illegally set up, that the regulations and the details that are supposed to have been included in the act to manage this project have not been done. And when we look at the contracts that were made public, it is even more worrying as to what has taken place. The BMAX contract was signed in November of 2023, where BMAX was asked to spend 23 million US dollars to build 66 units in Rockhall. That is a million EC dollars per unit of what is supposed to be a low-cost housing project. And BMAX was given 800 units, or $80 million worth of citizenships to sell for $23 million. In the case of BMAX, when people bought the citizenship, they were to put the money into the CIP unit, which was supposed to go into the economic fund. And so the drawdown for reimbursement, the $80 million that BMAX is supposed to be paid, would come from the economic fund. And the economic fund is a separate unit and would have had a separate contract, which we have not been privy to, with BMAX. 2 months later, they signed a contract with Galaxy for an infrastructure program, where the Minister of CIP, in essence, is borrowing 100 million US dollars from Galaxy, for Galaxy to be used for infrastructure programs. And in borrowing that money, the money does not come into the state, the money stays with Galaxy, and Galaxy is to contract all the contractors themselves, and it's on the basis of that work being completed that the government of St. Lucia then would turn around and reimburse Galaxy 600 million US dollars for $100 million worth of work. What is frightening is that in the contract it clearly states that the money shall not go into an escrow account. So it means that Galaxy collects the $100,000 and also the administrative fees. We think that this is highly irregular. This exposes everyone to corruption. It does not allow us to hold anyone accountable. And even more worrisome is that the persons who have applied for citizenship only need to prove that they paid the administrative fee. No word as to what has happened with the $100 million of infrastructure works. I have, at other occasions, explained how a design, finance, construct project works, meaning that there has to be a lot of approvals and safeguards put in place for infrastructure works to take place, none of which we have seen. The third component to this suit, this judicial review, is the underselling of our citizenships. We have evidence that has been provided by promoters overseas and other individuals that provide us with the proof that a financing scheme had been put in place, which in essence leads to an underselling of our passports and our citizenship. And why is that important? Because as we've indicated, if in fact that there is evidence, which we believe there is, that these applications are not complying with the laws of St. Lucia, then it has significant implications to our banking system and our correspondent banks. And that's what makes this case very special. A unique component of this case is we have also asked for an injunction to prevent the minister and the CIP unit from signing off on any more citizenships while this case is taking place. And why did we think that that was necessary? We saw in September correspondence to show that a particular law firm here in St. Lucia had actually processed 450 files under the infrastructure program. And remember, we've now shown that with Galaxy, all they have to do is provide the administrative fee for them to get the passports. We also are reliably informed that the passport, the immigration department that prints our passports, is even working on weekends to try to catch up with the backlog. And the purpose of the injunction is because what is the remedy if in fact we are right, which we strongly believe that we are, that there was malfeasance, there was, these are illegal programs that are being conducted, or are being managed, and therefore all the passports and citizenships that are being issued are illegal. How do we remedy the problem? So all those persons who thought that they were participating in a legal program, to now find out they're not, what is going to be now the recourse for the state? And so on this reason, we are strongly believe that there ought to be an injunction to prevent any further passports or citizenships being approved and any further passports being issued until the merits of this case are heard. This is the document here. As I said, it's been filed today, and I'm looking forward to having my lawyers getting their opportunity in court to hopefully defend the people of this country. The amount of money that we've seen being allocated to Galaxy and BMAX is approximately 2.2 billion US dollars worth of citizenships have been issued to those two companies, and we cannot find the money. The money is in the hands of a third party, and the question is, what obligations do they have to the state? And looking at the contracts, they have very little obligations to the state. So we're talking about close to 6 billion EC dollars of monies that should have been coming into the coffers of St. Lucia, and that St. Lucian should have seen the benefit of on the ground, that's not happened. So at this point, I'd like to open the floor for any questions from the media.
Afternoon, Honorable Chastanet. We have a few questions online from media persons viewing via the live stream. They've sent some emails and some WhatsApps with their questions. So the first, Did the withdrawal of the RICO case exonerate Minister Haley and the CEO McLeod, given that they used diplomatic immunity?
The case did not exonerate them. They applied diplomatic immunity on the case. I think that when I heard Mr. Martinez speak to that point, he indicated that means that he would not be able to proceed with the main case. He would have to deal with the immunity issue first, and the amount of time and resources that it would take to do that, that he decided to withdraw the case and instead become a whistleblower and to provide all the evidence that he had obtained to the law enforcement agency, not only in the U.S., but in other Western countries around the world. So I think that the minister and the CEO and the government of St. Lucia attempted to say that it exonerated them, but all the questions that we have still remain, and more importantly, the contracts that have come out and have been revealed show that the minister in particular has been lying all along and has been deliberately withholding pertinent information.
Second question. What is the one thing that you are trying to achieve from this latest filing of this court case?
The primary thing is to protect the assets of the people of St. Lucia. Whether some people want to see it that way or not, we use the word patrimony to describe our citizenship. Patrimony has a value. The value that's been placed on a citizenship in St. Lucia is $100,000 US. That is what has been regulated. That's the regulated price. It's now gone up to $200,000 US based on the recent agreement that was signed. So the question is, where's that money? And that is what this case is about, is to find out the truth. Where is the money? Who is responsible for this mismanagement? And hopefully the court will adhere to some of the things that we have requested. One is the injunction, but two is to deem the contract that was done with Galaxy for the real estate program illegal and an act of malfeasance, to deem the contracts of infrastructure illegal. And the question is whether, in fact, the Minister of CIP has the authority to engage a company and take on debt for the government of St. Lucia. We see that the Public Finance Management Act does not allow him to do that. And in fact, there's been significant amendments, significant amendments that have been made that would prohibit the minister by himself from doing that.
So, based on this latest judicial review which you filed, who is the one bearing the cost for this?
Unfortunately, we have a system right now that, despite I am the leader of the opposition and I form part of the government, there is no allocation being made to the leader of the opposition's office for any court cases. So all the judicial review cases, like this one, are having to come out of my personal resources. I'm not comfortable with that, nor is my wife, but I feel so strongly about what is taking place and how St. Lucians and this country are being robbed of very critical assets, that I'm prepared to take on that burden. And I'm hoping that in the future that we can make a change, that any leader of the opposition, whether it be me or somebody else, that they be given resources when they feel there needs to be something done. I want everybody to appreciate. I think that even if I was Prime Minister, I would react this way. It's better to get the truth out, and the place that has been designated in our Constitution for that truth to come out, where people can trust what has come out, is either from protected civil servants, and in this case we've seen none of the protected civil servants even prepared to comment on this issue. But the big one is the courts, and people hopefully have confidence in the decisions of the court, and that we can put something to rest. So I think that the government ought to be willing to participate and clear the air if in fact they've done nothing wrong. But certainly these documents are very damning. I certainly would not want to be in a position to have to defend them. But that is the course of action.
Wouldn't the CIP accounts provide you the answers that you're looking for?
Yeah, well, they would provide some of the answers. The CIP would provide some of the answers, but that would be in the annual reports. And as I indicated, this government has only filed one annual report, and that was 1 year late. It was filed last October, 1 year after when it was due, and that's in their own act. So I mean, this is a government that is accustomed, it would appear, to breaking the law. And now the second one, which would be a meaningful one, because this is where we saw the most number of applications coming in. So the idea, how much money is the CIP unit making when they're making all of these sales? So we've seen in St. Kitts and in some other countries, when this type of infrastructure program comes in, it undermines the value of our economic fund, of our bond, and everything else. So it means there's no money's coming in through those programs. And the only amount of money is coming in primarily is through the real estate program and through the infrastructure. And we've seen that within the infrastructure program, Galaxy is being paid a commission. All of that would come out in the report. But we've not been able, we've not seen the report. And that's why it's so important in this instance that take place. I'm also understand, I don't know if it's a short-sightedness on the government's part, but I went and checked that even though the report is placed before the House, you also are supposed to give it to the Auditor General before it goes to the House, so that the Auditor General can give their stamp of approval. And I say that because there's been a concern that the escrow account is not included in the audit. And that's very, very important. And I think in speaking to a lot of the top accounting firms here that would do audits, they've all agreed that if they were going to do the audit, they would require that they also audit the escrow account. And I think that that the purpose of these audits, these independent audits, are to give the public the satisfaction that the statutory agency is being properly run. So in the absence of that information, and given the information that we do have, it's causing all of us to speculate, and sadly the speculation that we have is not very kind to the government.
Okay. If the United Workers' Party were to form the next government, what would become of the Galaxy project?
I think we have to start on a bigger scale first, a macro scale first. What would we do with the CIP program? And I have indicated repeatedly that it is our intention to meet with the other leaders of the OECS and to insist that the CIP program become one CIP program for the OECS, meaning that we have one set of prices, one application center, and so therefore we have one program within the OECS. Because the way we have it right now is everybody has their own program and everybody's competing against each other. And even though they've signed an MOA, we've already seen evidence that people are not adhering to the MOA. And that the funds that are earned would go into a common fund for the OECS, and we can determine how it's going to be used. That is our absolute preferred way to go. In the case of Galaxy, and specifically what has happened here, again, I'm hoping that the judicial review case will agree with us that what is taking place is illegal and in fact corrupt. And the question becomes, are those legitimate citizenships because they were done illegally through an illegal program? And I think that the way that St. Kitts has gone is also a very good way for us to go, is to write every individual that has received a citizenship under the infrastructure program or through Galaxy, asking them to provide evidence that they have paid the right amount of money.
So you're very familiar with the court system, and we're aware that you have several matters pending before the courts. So it's a two-part question. how many cases do you currently have before the courts? And given that you have several cases at the moment, how confident are you that this case will be brought before the courts within a reasonable time?
I have 13 cases in the courts right now. Cases that either I have filed against people or people have filed against me. The court system, I have to have confidence in it because it's all that we have left. So, have I been happy and always comforted by what's taken place in the courts? The answer is no. But that has not swayed me from continuing to go to the courts. We had a case, a judicial review case on the Controller of Customs, on his decision to withdraw a case against Ernest Hilaire. And we lost the case in the Supreme Court. We lost the case in the appeals court. And we've now been given permission. In fact, yesterday we filed our appeal to the CCJ. So I certainly will continue to have respect for our democracy and our Constitution, which set it up. And we're told repeatedly that the judiciary is independent from everybody, even though I have a case where a judge recused himself alleging that there was political interference, and that judge was then transferred to a different jurisdiction. And up until now, there's no judges assigned to my cases. So these are worrisome things. I'm hoping that the fact that I'm pushing these things and people know that I'm not going to back down and I'm going to be relentless and I'm going to cite the Constitution and our rights all the time, that I will continue to put that kind of pressure on. And I think that hopefully people will see it for what it is, and that peer pressure, public opinion will put the pressure in the right places to make sure that we do have an improved, unbiased court system and one that we can be comfortable with. But right now, what's my alternative? The alternative is to continue to call the Prime Minister who continuously says he doesn't know anything. Ministers of government that are lying blatantly to us. We have a civil service, I'm sorry to say this, that has been intimidated, victimized, and in some cases corrupted, and are not doing their job. We have a civil society that have lost, I think, an idea of what role they're supposed to play in the checks and balances in our system. It's not about being political. Asking people to answer difficult questions and to your satisfaction is an important part of our democracy. So we will continue to put pressure on civil society. We will continue to highlight areas in where we believe that civil servants and key people are not doing their job. And we will, at this point, continue to rely on the courts, as slow as they may be, and sometimes questionable, but it's what we have. And I will continue to pursue that avenue. And I'm really hoping that, look, this was a lot of work. And there's a lot of evidence in this documentation. I think to substantiate the claims that were made, and based on law, based on what our Public Finance Management Act says, based on what the CIP Act says, that we believe that this government has acted egregiously and ultra-virusly.
Do you have any information that the Department of Justice or any other international organization is possibly investigating the CIP situation in St. Lucia?
So for full transparency, I did meet with members of the law enforcement agencies in the U.S. So I do know that there is or was some team looking at not just St. Lucia, but our CIP program and the criminal impacts of what was taking place, the money laundering, the possibility of human trafficking, and the exposure that it was creating to the U.S. You have a new U.S. president. There's a lot of changes taking place in the U.S. right now. Where the chips are going to fall, I don't know. But we do know that the U.S. is taking their borders very seriously. We see that the U.K. is taking their borders very seriously. We see Europe is now taking its borders very seriously, and so is Canada. And we've seen certain amendments, particularly to the OECS countries, which I think were driven in a large part because of CIP. We saw that the UK suspended visa-free access for Dominicans, and so did Ireland. We've seen the UK now implement an ESTA system like the Canadians, where you have to seek a waiver. And just for all of us to understand, when you seek a waiver, it doesn't mean you're going to get it. And if you don't get the waiver, it means you have to go and apply for a visa in Barbados or in Trinidad, wherever the location is. And so, for instance, if I had obtained a St. Lucian citizenship and I am living in Egypt and I denied the waiver, it means I have to go to the Barbados office to make my application. So they're already doing things to protect themselves. I'm more concerned of the fallout of reputation of our banking system, but in particular, these are strong allies of ours. And are they going to continue to trust us that our borders are protected? And certainly this government has acted with impunity, have disregarded those relationships, not only to the negative impact of those countries, but I'm going to say to all St. Lucians. If you add up the number of citizenships that were issued within the OECS in the last 20 years, it's almost 300,000. Now, I want to put that in perspective. In the 5 years we were in government, we issued 850 passports. And I want to say to everyone, it was difficult in doing all the due diligence. It was not easy, and I really applauded the board that we had put in place to try to overcome some of those challenges. But we're now, if we were to believe these numbers, that 12,000 files were given, and if you do up to four passports, or if you want to say 3 applications per file, that's 33,000 passports or citizenships that are going to be approved in St. Lucia alone in the last year and a half. How does that happen?
Final question. There's been several allegations floating around that Minister Hilaire has bank accounts in Egypt. Have you encountered any such information to substantiate?
I have no such information to substantiate that. Like many, I've heard the allegations that, and because we've left too much to speculation. So you have a situation where the local agents, which is our lawyers, are supposed to get $8,000 per file. And our understanding is they've been getting 5. So the question is, was it a discount, or did the 3 stay somewhere else? So these are some of the allegations that are being made. But what we do know is with 12,000 files at $5,000 EC, that's 60 million EC dollars that's been made by the lawyers in the last 2 years. And our understanding is one lawyer, Thaddeus Antoine, has made as much as half of that. And the problem, and it's cited in this case, is the way that they set up the program. It was not free for every agent in St. Lucia to participate, because Galaxy was selecting the promoter and the promoter was selecting the agent. So that's how there could be such a bias, number of files going to one company. But that's a lot of money. A lot of money. I don't know many companies in St. Lucia that would make $30 million in 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Leader of the Opposition. I want to extend my thanks to Senator Dominic Fede. I want to thank you, the members of the media, and I want to thank all our listeners and those of you who sent in your questions. Thank you. Please join us on Tuesday next week for another press briefing, and of course, we invite you on Monday at 8 p.m. to join me on Like It Is. Thank you very much. Have a good day. The United Workers' Party reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the health and well-being of every St. Lucian. When re-elected, we will reinstate the National Health Insurance NHI program, a vital initiative that was regrettably abandoned by the St. Lucia Labour Party, the SLP. This decision by the SLP has left thousands of St. Lucians vulnerable with limited access to affordable quality health care. The United Workers' Party will correct this injustice because we believe that health care is not a privilege,